Hello and welcome to another installment of Unstoppable. I'm your anchor, Sean Grant, and sitting next to me here, my esteemed co-anchor, Isabel Schmaler. This will be our last show of the semester and consequently my last show as one of your anchors. But never fear, we've got a show chock full of content today, so you'll want to hunker down and get ready to catch up on all of your favorite GW sports teams. Isabel, why don't you break it down for us?
Thanks, Sean. On today's show, we'll talk about our new men's basketball coach, JAMION, the men's baseball team, and the women's softball team. After that, we'll cover the gymnastics team, men's and women's track, men's and women's tennis, sailing, rowing, and finally, the golf team. We also got a chance to sit down with Marcy Robles, the head coach of the women's rowing team, to talk about her leadership in her first year at GW. Finally, our executive producer, Parker Jensen, comes out of the control room for his hot take segment and telling us the games that you just can't miss. All of this on Unstoppable.
Kicking things off here with a bit of old news. Back on March 15th, the GW men's basketball program fired head coach Maurice Joseph following one of the worst seasons in program history. Joseph, who still had 3 years left on his contract, finished with an all-time record of 44-57 after he took over from Mike Lonergan in 2016-2017. Athletic Director Tanya Vogel said in a statement, "This decision was necessary because we are not reaching our full potential on the court. Our university leadership and I have high expectations for what this program can achieve in the near future." As part of those future plans, the athletic department hired former Mount St. Mary's and Siena head coach JAMION on March 21st. Christian spent 6 seasons at Mount St. Mary's, where he led the team to a 67-39 conference record and 2 NCAA tournament appearances. He also found success in his lone season at Siena, as his team had a 9-win improvement over their previous season's record. Christian has hopes for the impact that he can have on the program. In a statement, he said, "GW has a rich basketball history and the potential to become a juggernaut in the Atlantic 10. I'm looking forward to bringing an exciting style of basketball to the nation's capital that all of the buff and blue faithful will be proud of." Joining Isabel and I now out the desk from his seat of power in the control room, Parker Jensen. Parker, Isabel, how do you guys feel about this hire for the program overall?
Well, I think the hire is actually very good. JAMION has a good reputation, of course, helping either assist or be the head coach at winning schools, whether it be Siena, which is like a low-level school, but they still beat GW this year in a surprise win that, quite frankly, surprised me that we didn't win that game, especially being Siena, which is such a no-name school. But his success in recruiting is also very big, too, and the fact that he can bring players together to make a successful season happen is crucial, especially to a team who had, one of the worst records we've seen in a while, in almost a decade.
Definitely. I mean, but now also then looking at that conference record, I mean, Isabel, you covered so many of the games this year. Do you think that, Christian's demonstrated success in winning conference games will help here at GW?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we've had our staff out there the entire season, most of us being freshmen, so we came out there expecting, to see some good games, and we didn't see that at all. So I think that, going into this is something that we've been wanting to see for so long, and, even before this season, so I think this is what GW needs, and yeah, his conference wins is what GW wants and needs at this point, so I think that's definitely a factor that we need to look into going into next season for sure.
And now we talked about the high hopes that both the athletic department and Christian have for the way that this team can change. Looking at those 2 NCAA tournament appearances, obviously that would be something that would be great for the program, especially coming off one of the worst seasons. How realistic do you guys think that will be? Maybe not even next year, maybe not even 2 years, but let's say 3 years down the road at the earliest.
Well, the good thing about Christian is that he's very good at recruiting. We saw that Siena in particular, their roster overall wasn't too great, but what Christian did was he went into that program and he made it a school that students really wanted to play at. And if they could do it here at GW, that's going to be very big for this school because, as we know, the overall recruitment hasn't been great for GW as of late. So if you can come into this program and maybe 3-4 years down the road, we have a good recruiting class and it keeps on being that over the next few years, we could see a really good team come into fruition.
Gotcha. Well, now I also think something that we need to focus on for Christian, one of the issues that I think we criticized Coach Maurice Joseph for especially right at the end of his tenure, was that he sometimes had struggles making in-game adjustments and maybe even handling some of the bigger personalities in the locker room. After his first season, we saw a lot of players, just to name a few, Kevin Marfo, and there were a couple others that transferred right after that first season. And so do you think that this will be something that Christian has to deal with? I mean, obviously we might have a few more mild, attitudes in the locker room now, but given that was an issue, something that Maurice Joseph struggled with, that obviously needs to change for Christian. So how do you think he'll be able to handle that?
Well, I think someone to look at specifically is Justin Mazzulla. He's not the easiest player to play with in general. Jair Bolden from last year is a great example as well. Jair obviously left to go to South Carolina, mainly because of his own style of play, but also because Joseph couldn't handle him as a player. He was very vocal in the locker room. He was very much an isolated player. That's his play style, but also as a person in general. And I feel like Mazzulla, while it's not to that degree, definitely has that chip on his shoulder mentality. And seeing Christian's coaching style at Siena, he can control some players, but the one thing that I'm skeptical with for Christian in particular is how is he going to deal with Mazzulla, how is he going to deal with Tora, how is he going to deal with high-level players that, sure, they're good on their own, but don't necessarily work well in a system, and how are they going to deal with those egos? That's the biggest thing that I have as a big question mark for Christian going into this next season.
Yeah. Now, finally, what are some of, what's the biggest thing that you think Christian needs to change going into next season right off the bat? First thing he has to address.
I mean, definitely switching up the lineup. We've talked about this in basically every single game that we've covered this entire season. It's the same 5 players every single time out. And we do have a lot of freshman talent that we didn't get to see a lot of this season. So I think that definitely going into next season, that's something to take advantage of, especially like you said, with big personalities on the team. Throw in some freshman players and maybe, just switch things up a little bit. And you have the new coach, you have new talent. We also, like you said, he's good at recruiting, so we don't know what's coming for next season also. So we'll have to see what kind of roster we have coming up. So I think that's one of the biggest factors for sure.
Well, I think as a final note, just to kind of end this, I think Christian overall in the next season really needs to emphasize their style of play and really look at that, because Maurice Joseph, his style of play is throwing the same 3 schemes up, throwing the same 3 plays both on offense and defense, and just hoping that works for these players. That's not how these players run as themselves, and again, as a group, as a collective. So if he can emphasize the strengths of these players specifically and utilize their strong points, that's really going to help them going into next season.
Okay. All right, thank you for joining us, Zach Parker.
The GW men's baseball team has a lot to prove going into the remainder of their season after losing 2 out of 3 games to the UMass Minutemen this past weekend. From winning against teams like UMBC 11-6 and William & Mary 8-4, as well as winning a 3-day tournament against George Mason, the loss to UMass was uncharacteristic for the team given the level of skill and leadership shown the past couple of weeks. With players like Dom D'Alessandro and junior Nate Foss ranking 4th and 5th for best batting average nationally and totaling a 20-15 season so far, the team has performed extremely well throughout the season, leaving younger players on the team with big shoes to fill. Joining us at the desk, Savannah Gaida. Savannah, where do you see the remainder of the season going?
Well, I mean, they're having a pretty average season. They have a record of 32-26. However, they've won the last 5 of their last 6 games. So they're on a hot streak right now, and they've got a lot of young guys developing. First-year catcher Anthony Fretchett had his first home run of the year, so that's looking good. And there are a lot of freshmen on the team, and they're just really getting a feel of the game, so that's going well for them. However, there are a lot of general inconsistencies that we see in their series. For example, they recently were blown out by Rhode Island 1-19 in the first game of the series, and then they won the next game 4-3, and then lost the third game 1-6. So it's incredibly inconsistent, and you see a different team every game because the scores vary so much.
Well, and that's kind of surprising that we're seeing this kind of inconsistency from a team like this. I mean, we know that they can score the runs. And, you just mentioned, Dom D'Alessandro, Nate Foss-Not. Like, those are guys that, we've seen in the past couple of years, and especially this year. They can hit home runs. They drive in runs, and they're just generally leaders at the plate. So, what do you, Savannah, think are some of the issues that are leading to this inconsistency? Given that they have the kind of offense, they should be able to score enough runs to win games, not get blown out, 19-1.
Yeah, I think their biggest issue here is pitching, and they really need to improve that and work on that. They give up too many walks. Billy Grant is one of the pitchers on the team, and his earned run average is 54. And to put things into perspective for anyone who is not a baseball fan, a good earned run average is considered to be 4 or less. And there are only 3 pitchers under 4, and those are Andrew Wheeler, Cal Stalter, and Elliot Ramo. So they really need to improve on that and stop giving up walks, because that's just more runs for the other teams. Like in their recent series win against William and Mary, their lead was cut down to 8-4 because of bad pitching. And junior pitcher Andrew Wheeler pitched a scoreless 8th inning until eventually the coach replaced him, because that's just unacceptable.
Yeah, no, and I think that, I mean, just like you said, the issue with walks also is that it doesn't allow, your offense to be out there. You can't score runs when you're prolonging innings and you're loading the bases and giving up runs like that. And so clearly pitching is something that they do need to focus on. But getting back to that offense, right? We've continuously stressed how talented this offense is and how they can score runs. So, who are some of those other players aside from D'Alessandro and Fosnot that you've seen that can perform well?
Well, first-year rookie Noah Levine was named Rookie of the Week by the A10, so that is a great accomplishment. And this team has seen a lot of A10 offensive awards, and you mentioned, again, junior Nate Fosnot. He earned 3 consecutive Player of the Week honors from the A10. So that looks great for them. They just have to figure out a way to kind of work together here and improve as a team.
Thanks for that, Savannah. Now it's time to talk about a team that has been on an absolute tear recently. Women's softball currently sits at an impressive 31-13 record, and they've been dominant at home, where they've won 20 games and only lost 6. Their winning ways started early on in the season and have continued up until now. They were especially hot in the month of March, which included a clean sweep of the Colonial Classic. The women won every game against opponents Canisius, UMBC, and Manhattan, and they won in emphatic style. They finished with double-digit win totals in all but one game. The team is led by the devastating duo of junior Jenna Cohn and sophomore Sierra Lang. A couple of players will break down in just a second, but first, taking his spot out here at the desk, Sam Belsky.
Well, they've been really, really great. They've gone 31-13 to this point, 20-6 at home, which is just absolutely insane. They have multiple players stepping up, and they've been all around really good team.
And some of those players, who would you highlight as some of the most productive players so far this season?
Well, I think that one of the almost overlooked ones is Jessica Lindquist, who just ended this weekend a streak of 28 straight games with a hit, which is 17th most, or tied for 17th most in NCAA Division I history, which is just crazy. In addition to that, there's Sierra Lange, who's been both pitching and hitting best on the team by far. She's pitched over half the innings that the team has played. She's got a 2.61 ERA, which, as we heard before, is pretty good. And she's also got the highest batting average on the team with a 4.32.
That's impressive. It seems like she can really do it all. And obviously, there's a couple other players. We talked about Jenna Cohn in that rundown. Looking at some of her stats, she's got a 4.04 batting average. She's got 57 hits. And she doesn't pitch as often, but she also is 3-0 as a starter. So you're really looking at players who can kind of do it all out there for them. But maybe focusing on them more now as a team. What do you think that obviously they've got a really good record, but what's something that they could improve upon?
Well, really, there's only 2 spaces where I can really see them improving, just because they've been so good so far. Their A10 record is good, but not as good as the rest of their record. And we'd like to see that going into the tournament to improve. Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, their away record is not nearly as good as either of those. I believe they're 500 away. And they really need to just work on that to become a truly complete, really, really elite team. Mm-hmm. But going forward, they have some really easy matchups. They have teams with losing records to come. They have teams with 500 record like Dayton to come. Otherwise, they don't have a team with a winning record that they're going to see until the tournament.
Well, and so then, really looking at the fact, looking at these statistics, they had, 9 of their wins ended after 5 innings because of, of the run deficit. So maybe going up against some of that, lower level competition in the A10 is going to benefit them. One last note, if there's one player who you think that the viewers should watch out for through the rest of the season, who would you highlight? We've gone through a bunch of players now, but who's that one player who you really think should keep an eye on?
A player that we haven't mentioned so far yet, Marta Fuentes, has started all 29 of the games that she's played in, so she hasn't necessarily started and played in every single game, but the ones that she has played in, she started them, and she's done really well, especially base running. She's 18 for 20 stealing, which is just it's a great percentage, and it's even better seeing how high the amount of attempts that she has is, which is just it's it's really good to see going forward.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thanks for that, Sam.
Flipping over to gymnastics, the team has maintained a significant presence closing out their season at the NCAA regional competition. While the team came in last at the competition against top-ranked teams LSU, Auburn, and Arizona State, they've had an exemplary record this season, coming in first place at the pink meet here in the Smith Center this past February, as well as posting a season-high score of 196.025 against Towson University, going on to come in second place at the East Atlantic Gymnastics League competition. Fifth-year co-captain Alex Zois finished on the podium for the 8th time this season with a career-high score of 39.425. Joining us at the desk, Bella Corshane. Bella, what have we seen this season so far, and how do you think they'll be able to maintain this energy?
Yeah, they've really done a great job maintaining the energy throughout the entire season. They fought really hard at the first round of the NCAA Baton Rouge Regional Championships to clinch their spot in the second round. They ended fourth of four at the Baton Rouge Regional Championship in the second round on April 5th with an overall score of 195.675. But they did really well. They posted team high scores of 48.625 on the vault and 48.525 on the floor. So they've done really well this season.
Yeah, and those seem like pretty consistent scores, across the board. And if they're performing so well, in every category, basically, they really do need some leadership. So who do you think has been a leader for this team?
Oh, definitely Alex Zois. She's the only gymnast who competes in all 4 events. She has an all-around score of 39.125, like you said, season high 39.425 at the March 1st and 17th meets. So she's really done a great job stepping up and leading this season.
Maybe going into next season, though, is there another athlete that we should focus on now, given that Zois is about to graduate?
Definitely. Sophomore Katya Karpova performed really well in the championship. She's only a sophomore, so we're definitely looking forward to see what she does in the future. Also, freshman Olivia Raymond got her season high on the floor in the first round of the championship with a 9.8, so definitely someone to watch.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Bella.
Thanks.
Lacing up those spikes and getting out on the AstroTurf with men's and women's track and field. Competing at the Bison Outdoor Classic, hosted at Bucknell University this past weekend, both teams sent 10 athletes to the event, and out of those 7 that were making their season debut, 6 of those athletes set personal records. For the women, Suzanne Danaheim, a name mentioned frequently on this show, finished 3rd overall and broke a school record in the 3,000-meter event with a time of 10 minutes and 23.95 seconds. That time should allow her to qualify for the NCAA East Regional Competition. Sophomore Olivia Horgan also performed well, setting a PR and finishing 7th in the 5,000-meter event. For the men, GWTV's general manager Andy Weber set a new school record and finished 2nd in the 10K event with a time of 31 minutes and 0.8 of a second. Senior Connor James also killed it in the 10K event, placing 7th with a time of 31 minutes and 28.24 seconds. Congrats to both men and women's track for such a strong showing, and let's hope they can continue to build momentum heading into the A10 championships in a couple of weeks. We're going to head to a quick commercial break now, but stay tuned because when we get back, we'll keep this rundown rolling.
All right, we'll be ready in about 5 minutes.
I'll be ready. While these guys finish up, I got a few things I want to show you. Come with me. Over the summer, we gave a lot of things a new fresh coat of paint and a new look, including the Vern Shuttle Express. Take a look at this. Oh, there you are. I thought I'd lost you. Come on with me. I want to show you the new all-you-can-eat dining option out at the Mount Vernon campus. Hey, I can charge my phone in here. I'm stuffed. You got to try the mac and cheese. It's great. I got one more stop to make. I got to get my gear for the year. Let's go to the bookstore. You can't have too many GW ties. You need to get out in your buff and blue. I want to see at all the events and the games, raising GW high. One of the things I heard from a lot of our students is we need more community space, a place to eat, study, hang out with friends. Like this one. This is one of our new spaces. We need to get going. Got to get back. This is going to be an exciting year.
And action.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. The GW sailing team has been making waves this season, ranking number 6 overall in the nation earlier this year. with the women's division maintaining their number 8 national seat, coming in first place at the Navy Regatta earlier this season, as well as securing a second place spot at the Intercollegiate Offshore Regatta. The women have proven themselves this season with several first and second victories. While the team has been ranked 17th nationally, the team recently came in 4th place this past weekend at the Navy Spring Co-Ed competition, outperforming top-ranked national teams including Georgetown, ranked 2nd in the nation, and College of Charleston, ranked 4th. Juniors Aitana Mendeguren and Sarah Noyes have led the women's division throughout the course of the season, leaving high hopes for next season as the pair transition into their senior year. The team has a very busy weekend ahead of them as they compete in the Mesa Championship at Fordham, the Boston Dinghy Cup at MIT, and the Admirals Cup in Kings Point, New York. Good luck to them.
Serving things up to men's and women's tennis now. For the men, they've hit a bit of a rough patch through the middle part of their season. The team currently sits at a 5-13 record overall, and while they are 4-3 in conference, they've struggled to win games at home, where they hold a 3-6 record. The struggles for this team have also been especially pronounced recently, as they are 2-3 in their last 5. With only one more match remaining before the Atlantic 10 Championships, hopefully the men can gain some momentum. For the women's team, they've fared much better than their male counterparts. With an overall record of 10-9, this team has picked up critical wins over the last couple of weeks as they beat UMass 4-3, Rhode Island 4-0, Georgetown 5-2, and Davidson 5-2, before they dropped their most recent match to Elon 4-3. With their senior day match against George Mason, the last on their schedule, we wish the women good luck going into that contest.
The GW men's rowing team has been off to an impressive start this spring season, finishing with a pair of second-place victories against Cornell with the 2 varsity boat with a time of 5 minutes and 53.4 seconds, and the 4 varsity 8 boat with a time of 6 minutes and 8.4 seconds in Ithaca, New York. The varsity 8 went 1-1 this past Saturday, beating Holy Cross, later falling to FIT with a time of 5 minutes and 35.4 seconds here in the district at the GW Invitational. The women's division secured a second-place victory against Drexel with their fastest time of the weekend at 6 minutes and 26.5 seconds. The men's division will travel to Boston this upcoming weekend, going head-to-head with Boston University and Dartmouth College, while the women will head to the Cherry Hill Invitational in New Jersey.
Well, they certainly haven't performed as well as Tiger did in the Masters, but the men's golf team has flashed some strong performances through the middle part of their spring season. While they struggled in their most recent tournament, where they placed 24th out of 27 teams at the Stanford Wally Goodwin Invitational, they performed well at the tournament before that. At the Bash at the Beach in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, the boys placed 3rd out of 13 teams and were led by strong performances from senior Logan Lowe, who birdied the 16th and 17th holes before making par on the 206-yard par 3 18th hole to claim the co-champion title with Simon Zach of Louisville and John Hill of Incarnate Word at 5 under. With one tournament left on the schedule before the Atlantic 10 Championships, hopefully the boys can follow the example of Lowe in the Bash at the Beach and hit their stride. We're going to head to a quick commercial break now, but when we return, the loquacious Parker Jensen joins us at the desk once again to bring you the games that you just can't miss and everybody's favorite segment, Hot Takes. Stay tuned.
You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah?
Let's do it.
Okay, ready?
Let's go.
Welcome.
Wait, do you want me to go or?
I thought I was going.
No,
You go. You go.
Sean and Michael want you guys. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Welcome to GW.
I thought I was supposed to
I
start.
thought I was going to go first.
Here comes Parker. Come on, guys. It's not that hard, all right? It's just one line. All right. You guys know the line.
Welcome to GWTV. You can visit us at gw-tv.com.
See, that wasn't so bad.
I'm joined now by Marcy Robles, the new head coach for the women's rowing team. Thank you so much for being here today, Coach Robles. So you have been coaching here in the district for 2 seasons at Georgetown prior to coming to GW. So what's it like being back in your hometown of the district?
Oh, it's awesome. I honestly didn't think I'd at least be able to get back here anytime soon. And this career has taken me to all corners of the country. So to be able to have this opportunity open up this summer and to be able to come back was great. And I thank Tanya and Andre, our athletic director, and my sports supervisor for allowing me that opportunity, for sure.
Awesome. And so you had a very successful season over at Rutgers and at the Jacksonville University before that. Yep. And so how is that correlating over to GW? Like, what are your expectations going into the season as it starts to go into the A10s?
Yeah, Jacksonville and Rutgers are pretty different programs. And so I think taking my experiences and the things that I've learned at each and being able to apply it here has been really helpful. GW is sort of in between the two, where Jacksonville is a much smaller program, much smaller school, and Rutgers is obviously in the Big Ten. And so being at a mid-major and being able to take lessons learned has been great.
Awesome. And so can you talk a little bit about your position on the We Coach Council and how that's sort of strengthened the dynamic on the team at GW?
Yeah, absolutely. In 2012, when I was out west at Gonzaga, I applied for the Women's Coaches Academy, which is a sort of 5-day professional development session offered through what is now We Coach. Before that was the Alliance of Women Coaches, and the organization is designed to keep women in coaching and to empower women and to build them up professionally. And so I had that experience a number of years ago and have kept in touch with my peers there and got to know the new executive director. And so late this summer, she asked me to be on the council, and it's been wonderful. We get together once a quarter and sort of talk about what's going on in our respective worlds. The council is comprised of women across divisions, across sports, and it's just an opportunity for the executive board to really keep in touch with what's going on out in the coaching world.
And so how has your position on We Coach really strengthened your role as a coach yourself and just women in general being in a coaching position?
Yeah, absolutely. Empowerment is so important, and we talk about that a lot on our team, empowering our team to own their role in their own success and to be advocates for themselves. And so in a position now where I am charged to be an advocate for our sport and the women in our sport, I think, as someone who's a role model, being in the position I'm in, it's so important for my athletes and for any athletes, male or female, to see someone in that leadership role.
Awesome. And so going into the remainder of your season, where do you see the team going?
Yeah, we had the GW Invite this past weekend with mixed results in terms of execution. The crews did what they needed to do and really demonstrated consistency in terms of what we've been seeing in practice. Our second varsity 8 had a really good showing and certainly got closer to the varsity 8 than they had been, and so we're continuing to look at different combinations and continuing to find a little bit more speed as we head into the last 4 weeks before A10s.
Nice. And so looking into next season, as some of the key seniors go on and graduate, and what are you looking for in terms of recruitment and just next season in general?
Absolutely. Recruiting was a little different than year in that we got such a late start. My first day at GW was the first day of school, and at that point you've pretty much been establishing a relationship with the recruiting class for the previous 12 months. And so the way we approached recruiting this year was a little bit more relaxed, I think, than we've been in the past, and the focus was on really targeting the athletes who wanted to be at GW first. And then rowing was sort of secondary. And so I think we've come up with a class that's a really good fit. They're really excited to be in DC, really excited to be at this school. And rowing is icing on the cake. And I think that mentality of just the passion for rowing, knowing that this is the school where they want to be is so important. And so we'll continue to build on that with the juniors that we're working with. This fall, we're also going to make a push to recruit novice walk-ons to our team. That's a big part of building teams in women's collegiate rowing. I myself started as a novice my freshman year in college, and so my assistant coach will be spearheading that effort as well.
Awesome. And so just looking at the season in general, what are your hopes and your expectations going into next season?
That we continue the momentum that we've built this season. I think this team has handled the change in training really well. We're fitter and stronger and faster than we've been, and it has turned into a process that they've enjoyed. It's hard, but they're continuing to see progress every day, and that makes it sustainable. And so I'm excited to see what another year of training like the one we just had does for these guys.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Coach Robles, and we look forward to seeing what the rowing team does next season. Hey, Sean, what are we doing for this segment this morning?
Whoa. Cole, why are you wearing a wig?
Sean, it's me, it's Isabel.
Cole, it's too early in the morning for this. Come on, don't stop messing with me.
Come on, we gotta get started.
Go take
Sean.
the wig off. Come on, take the wig off. We gotta get ready to go, all right?
All right, whatever, Sean.
Welcome back. It's time for everyone's favorite segment. It's time for the games that you just can't miss.
Baseball will be taking on a Davidson team who is 2-9 on the road, but over 500 on the year, giving the boys a tough matchup. That game is on Sunday, April 21st at 12 p.m. They will also be taking on rival Georgetown in Bethesda on April 24th at 7 p.m. Softball will be playing a doubleheader against Dayton up at the Vern on April 27th, starting at 1 p.m. And hey, if you want more softball, come back and watch them the next day playing Dayton, also 1 p.m. And those are the games that you just can't miss. A short list, sure, but what can you do when school's ending in a few weeks anyway? And hey, don't think we forgot about our second favorite segment. It's time for Hot Takes. I'm your host, Parker Jensen. The rules here are simple. I'll ask a question to our two anchors, and they'll get into heated arguments with each other for your viewing pleasure. Let's start with men's basketball, who has seen a change in leadership over this past offseason. JAMION Christian will have an uphill battle ahead of him, with a weak roster, players transferring out, and a fan base that has been lacking over the past several years. Do you think JAMION Christian will be able to turn the sports culture at GW around? Isabel, I'll start with you.
I think just flat out yes. He has a lot. Yes, like you said, he's got some things, not really working in his favor. But on the other side of that, he has a whole new freshman class that he's going to be working with. And I really do think that focusing on the freshman class and focusing on that, that unforeseen talent that we haven't gotten to see this season so far, I think if you're really focusing on those new guys that are coming out on the court, I think that we can turn around the season going forward. And as far as GW sports culture, I don't know if anyone can really fix that, but I think that, yeah, if Christian can turn around, scoring and ball movement and just the roster in general, I think that people are going to want to start coming to games more often, and I think it's good to be encouraging going into next season.
Yeah. Well, I'm obviously going to take the opposite pessimistic view, and I'm going to say no, I don't think that he will be able to within his first 3 years. Once we get beyond that, if he's still contracted with the team, then we'll see what can happen. But I think we saw the same thing happen with Maurice Joseph. I think they almost, when obviously the coaches may have different styles, but in a sense they're very similar in the fact that they're still both very young and they're coming into a program where they're still having to deal with rosters that were, the same roster from the previous coach. And so when you have a change like that happen, obviously there are some players that can adapt, but for others it's hard to all of a sudden adapt to a new coaching style, a new playing style, that they're going to have to play within his system, and so there's a lot of change that's going on. And so I think, while Christian was very successful in his 1 year at Siena and he was able to have a 9-win improvement for that team, I just think, given this current roster, we've broken down the players, and we've said a player like Missoula, he plays a very specific way, and if that, we don't have a lot of shooters on this team either. If you looked at what Christian said about the offense that he wants to bring in, it's predicated on protecting the ball and shooting 3-pointers. So I think that in order for his system to really, really work, and in order for him to start winning games, I think you're going to have to see that, that's going to have to progress a couple years later when he's able to actually recruit and bring in the players that he wants to play. That's not to say that the recruiting class that GW has now will be bad, but I think that it's just going to be a big adaptation period for everyone. And in terms of fixing the culture at the school, you can also say there's a new freshman class coming in next year. Like you said earlier, you were very excited to come in and watch games and see how the team performed, but you were disappointed with how they played. And so I think that, again, that's also going to be something that you're going to have to see a couple more years down the line. And I think, for the immediate future, we're not going to see too much of a change. But hey, I'd like to see him prove me wrong.
Well, I think I have a similar view for both of you. If you put your two arguments together, that's kind of how I feel. That's my sentiment. I am optimistic. I think Christian has a very good track record, and he could do a lot if he brings in the right people, but I have to agree with Sean. With school coming to a close in a month, it's a good time to reflect over the past few months to see what we might have missed. Keeping that in mind, what sports team do you think didn't get enough attention that it deserved for Unstoppable? Sean, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm going to be honest, Parker, and I'm not just saying this because we have, the estimable Andy Weber in the control room today, but I think the team, or rather the two teams that have not gotten the attention they deserve on this show are cross country and track and field. And yes, Andy, I am referring to both sports, not just one. And so I think that, we've mentioned them in a lot of rundowns, but this was, one of the first times we really got a good package in for this show. And so, you see there are names, though, that we mention every single time. Suzanne Danaheim, and she's been, won so many awards in recent weeks. And Andy had a tremendous performance this past weekend. And there's just a lot of names that people might not know as well because we don't talk about it as much. So for me, I'm going to go with both men's and women's track and cross country.
For me, it's definitely the sailing team, for sure. I cannot stress this enough.
Had to go there, didn't you?
The sailing team is amazing. Not only are they were ranked number 6 nationally in the entire nation. On top of that, they're cool. They know how to put up sails and go in the water, and they train so much. They're just an awesome team. So I think that talking about the sailing team a little bit more often, especially with how good they are, and on top of that, the women's sailors. It's the female team that really is out there. I don't think they've come below a 4th rank at all this entire season. They've been getting 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th places. That's incredible. And for all this stuff that we talk about, basketball being horrible and all the other sports that really, need some room for improvement, the female sailing team cannot say anymore.
Well, I think just for the cool factor alone, I have to give this one to Isabel, but I agree with almost every single point that you said. We don't cover it at all. We didn't cover it all this season. And not to give discredit or anything to Andy, but overall, I think we do talk about Suzanne Danaheim specifically quite a bit on the show, and I think we do give it its due diligence, unlike sailing, which quite frankly, we don't talk about. So for this one, I have to give it to Isabel. Finally, we all know Sean Grant for his funny antics and his charismatic stage presence, but what you might not know about him is he's a fun guy off set too. With a treasure trove of stories to choose from, what's your personal favorite Sean Grant memory? And Sean, I am going to ask you this too. Isabel, I'll start with you.
Honestly, just knowing Sean for this short amount of time, it's been awesome. And every single moment with Sean is great and memorable. But I will say that my first shoot ever for Unstoppable was definitely my favorite memory with you, because I was so nervous, literally shaking in my boots nervous. So I think that memory with you and making me feel like I was confident enough, I was chosen to be here, and just making me feel like how the energy of Unstoppable, how amazing it is. So that's definitely my favorite memory with you.
Well, I don't know if you want to. I'll say my own personally. You don't need to talk about yourself per se. My favorite Sean Grant memory, quite frankly, has been just writing all the scripts. It has to be a combination of all of those. That script writing for writing these shoots has been something very special to me that I've taken near and dear to my heart. Just the personal lessons that you've taught me as a person, let alone as a broadcaster, have been insurmountable. They've been fantastic for me personally and my growth. And so, and just the laid-back, casual vibe at all. So I think just for all that, I have to say that one for me. Well,
thank you guys.
Of course. Well, to wrap up the show, I'm going to have to give this one to Isabel since Sean didn't say anything about himself. That's totally fine. So Isabel, congratulations, but that's all we have for Hot Takes. So back to you.
Okay, well, this is the time where we usually close out the show. You hear Isabel and I, say something nice about, following us on social media. But given that it is my last show, I had some remarks. And before we sign off today, and this will be my last sign off, as I am a senior, there are a few people that I wanted to thank and some experiences that I wanted to highlight. First, I wanted to thank the older members of GWTV, those who have already graduated and who are no longer here at school. For my very first shoot, I was incredibly nervous, and actually I was so nervous that for the entire shoot, I was deadpan the entire time. You can go and watch the episode online and you can see it's actually pretty funny. But from that first shoot until the end of my junior year, when a lot of those individuals graduated, there were so many lessons that I learned, so much insight that they gave me, so much valuable advice that I still rely on now. They really taught me, first taught me what it means to be a broadcast journalist, and so I can't thank them enough for that. Next, I wanted to thank Jeff and Doug, our station supervisors. I don't think that they get enough credit for the effort that they put forth every time we want to shoot something, and it's from silly questions on our part to good teaching moments from them, early mornings, late nights. They are always here for us and making sure that we can put out the content that we want to. So I wanted to thank them as well. Now I want to thank and congratulate the younger members on our show. They offer such a bright future for Unstoppable. When Andy and I first restarted the show on campus, when we were freshmen, we couldn't have hoped for a better outcome now as we're planning to leave. We went from such a small staff now to having so many incredibly talented young journalists, and they're all reporting on GW Sports, and there's nothing that brings me more joy than that. You all have given this show a new meaning for me as I've tried to pass on some advice to you, whatever value that advice might have, but it's really given me a whole new perspective on what I can kind of bring to the show, and so I really appreciate that. Singling out one young member in particular, Isabel, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to work with you as a co-anchor, even if it has only been for a couple of shows. For me, it's been very special, just getting to watch you develop and you have so much confidence, and every day I see that grow, and I think you're so naturally talented, and I think what a testament to that is how quickly you've been able to come out here and fill that anchor seat, just like it was no issue at all. And so I simply cannot wait to see where you take this show in the future. I'll be watching, every live broadcast, every show that you guys put out, I'll be watching. I also wanted to take a second to thank another co-anchor of mine who is no longer here on the show, but Kolan Chustigi. So when my first co-anchor, Casey Decker, became the anchor of Crossfire, so I needed to find a new co-anchor. And I didn't know who I was going to choose. I didn't know anyone really else that could fill the role, but I initially had a conversation with Cole when I first met him about sports broadcasting, and so I knew that he had an interest in it, and I asked him if he wanted to do it, and he did. He didn't have anything to, he didn't have any journalistic practice, didn't take any SMPA courses, he didn't have any experience before he came on to Unstoppable, and that did not stop him from, delivering great content every time he came on with me. And I especially think that he pushed me creatively. He really helped me push that creativity beyond the bounds of what I thought that it could be. Now for the knucklehead on the other side of the studio over there, Parker. I think it would be an understatement for me to say that I've thought of you as a protege, but that's a selfish statement. I've watched you develop skills that I could never teach you. Along with being an incredible director, you have a natural camera presence and this charismatic energy that you channel into everything that you do. You've really seized Unstoppable by the reins, and you've found ways to help it continue to grow beyond what Andy and I thought that it could have been. And so, again, as I said with Isabel, I can't wait to see where you guys take the show next. One of the benefits that I didn't expect when I first joined the show was to, gain friendships that went beyond the show. Matt Kerwin, talking to you now. I think it's safe to say, Matt, that if Rudy hadn't brought you to the Unstoppable meetings back in our sophomore year, that I never would have met you. But I'm glad that Rudy did. Thank God that she did. Aside from your interviewing skills, your strong presence in so many live broadcasts, your unflappable energy, your unparalleled sports knowledge, and yes, that includes me. I don't even think I can, match you in your sports knowledge. You help me grow as a person every time that, that we're together, and it's hard to put into words how much that means to me. Now for Matt's better half, Rudy. The first time Rudy and I met, she told Andy and I that she couldn't believe that someone's parents would actually raise them in inner city Chicago. Now, of course, that statement made Andy think that Rudy was a typical suburban person, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I just have to say the efforts that Rudy puts forth as a journalist, as a friend, are anything but typical. Rudy, you have your incredible intellect, your attention to detail, and your care are the reasons that I respect you so much. And I just want you to know that I know that you have expanded my worldview, and I know that you would back me up in any situation that I got myself into. And I just want to thank you for that. Now for Andy. Where do I start? After 18 years, we practically are an old married couple at this point. There are plenty of memories that I could share, but to be honest, those really aren't fit for television. But I can comment on how you've influenced my ultimate career choice. You always knew you wanted to be a journalist. Towards the end of high school, I didn't really have a plan for what I wanted to do, but I was really interested in doing journalistic work ever since we started producing radio shows in my basement in sophomore year. I thought there might have been something to that. When we came to GW, you always joked that I followed you. I always denied that, of course, but maybe there was something to that too. Through all of the experiences we've had pursuing this shared career interest, I can't talk enough about the lessons that you've taught me. I can also thank you. I can never thank you enough for helping me make this ultimate career choice and make all of these life decisions. I'll say it again on tape also for your benefit right now. Running is in fact a sport. Web Slinger, thank you so much.
Well,
that's it. That's all I have.
Well, I would love to say from all of us, there's so much that we want to say. Isabel, I'll start off with you, and I'll come over to the desk, but
Yeah.
I'll let you start.
Sean, you've been absolutely nothing but the best mentor ever, and also just like a stand-in big brother coming to GW is like what I needed this year, just coming to college and not really knowing what to expect. You've been literally like one of the best guys ever, and whoever comes and sits in your chair is going to have some huge shoes to fill.
Quite
And
literally, I'm size 14.
yeah, okay. So yeah, and just like your energy and your constant positivity towards everyone is incredible, and can't wait to come visit you in New York next year.
Thanks.
There's a lot for me to say, but I'll keep mine short. Your impact on me personally has gone throughout Unstoppable and past that. The strides that you helped me find as a person, not just in general with everything, whether it be dealt, whether it be here, whether it be whatever. You've taught me so much as a man, as a broadcaster, as a person. And there's nothing that I can say or do that would show you my gratitude. And from the bottom of my heart, deep from the bottom of my heart, you affected me in more ways than anyone else has at SMPA, more than anyone else has here at GW. And I really want to say that thank you for everything. You're going to do great at Time Warner. You're going to do great as a businessman in your career later on. The sky's the limit for you, and I'm very excited. So thank you for working with me.
Thank you, guys. Not sure how we follow that up, but that's all the time we've got for you today. Thanks for tuning in to the season finale of Unstoppable.
As always, don't forget to follow us on Facebook and on Instagram at GWTV_Unstoppable. We'll see you next year.